and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. I'm your host, Vidas Pinkevicius. Hello, this is Vidas Pinkevicius and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. Today's guests are my wife, Ausra Motuzaite-Pinkeviciene, and my colleague and friend, organist Paulius Grigonis. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm very pleased to have this conversation with you today because we share a very interesting story together about 8 years ago we founded National Association of Organists in Lithuania in 2007, back in 2007. And the goal of this association was to promote the quality organ art here in Lithuania and to unite more organists into the common goal so that pipe organ art would survive in this difficult and complicated 21st century. So today we're going to talk about the church music and the organ playing situation in Lithuania, and we will share stories from our travels together, because we've done together about 20 or 30 organ demonstrations as a group for kids and adults in various churches, village churches and city churches, big and small places with one manual organs, 2 manuals, 3 manual organs, even on synthesizers we've done some of that. So it was a fascinating time to travel together, and I'm very excited to talk about these subjects with you guys. So again, let's start with Paulius. Paulius, could you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what do you do and what is your place in this church organ situation in Lithuania?
I work in a church as an organist and choir master. Maybe for 6 years now.
For 6 years, right. Who introduced you to the organ? Who was the first person? Do you remember the story when you first fell in love with the organ?
Yes, it was when I was a kid. I heard the organ of Kaunas Cathedral. Maybe I was 5 years old. Mm-hmm. That was my first big impression.
And you, since then, you always wanted to be an organist, right?
Well, yes. Mm-hmm. It was a dream to play organ.
Wonderful. And Ausra, of course, our listeners are familiar with Ausra from her podcast conversation about harmony, because Ausra is an expert in harmony, music theory, and other related subjects where she teaches these classes in National School of Arts in Lithuania. Ausra, can you tell us what was the most interesting organ that you saw in Lithuania, the most fascinating instrument that you touched?
During our demonstrations or in general?
It could be both ways. Maybe that was during our demonstrations. Who knows?
Well, I would say that the most interesting was Kasparinio organ in Vilnius, mm-hmm. Holy Ghost Church, but also in Lithuania. Mm-hmm. That was quite a fascinating instrument.
And Lithuanian organ, we have to remind our listeners from around the globe that this organ doesn't have any pedals, but it does have 2 complete manuals. So it's a unique instrument for its size. It has about it's like the size of 2 manual and pedal organ in appearance, but it doesn't have any pedal stops. So do you have an idea why it is so?
Well, I think because Catholic Church there were never much of congregational singing, and I think pedal organ and church organs especially needed to support congregational singing, and I think therefore that organ didn't need it because congregation didn't sing. So
Catholics basically differ from our neighbors Lutherans in the north, in Latvia, because Catholics would probably perform their music alternating, right, with the chant, in alternation, chant organ or choir and organ, which was later banned. This kind of procedure was banned during Second Vatican Council. So Paulus, do you think that Lutheran way of performing congregational singing might have changed the course of our organ culture in Lithuania?
I guess so. Yes, maybe it could change. But I think the reason why there is no pedals in Tytuvėnai organ, maybe another that nobody was playing pedal at all. Maybe it was more manual playing.
Mm-hmm.
but still I think there was a discussion with our colleagues from abroad about Kasparinį organ in Vilnius Holy Ghost Church, that still there was no coupler, I think, manual with the pedal, and people were discussing, organists were discussing about this problem. And I think it's also because of this, because Kasparinį built his organ in the monastery church, and also I think congregation and monks didn't sing together with the organ.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why pedal was quite small comparing with the manual stops.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't need coupler added. So.
Mm-hmm.
And of course Ausra is talking about that famous Kasparinį organ in the Holy Ghost Church, which was the replica of it was recently built in Rochester, New York, in America. It was built in, I think, Christ Church in Rochester, and the problem was that they basically wanted to play Bach. They wanted to call it the Bach organ, of course, but it lacked some of the stops, more prominent stops in the pedal, and also lacked pedal coupler. So they decided, I guess, to add the pedal coupler with the manuals.
I think so.
In order to be able to reproduce more sort of pedal solos by Bach playable. Wonderful. So Paulius, I'm interested in knowing your favorite Lithuanian organ. Do you remember what was the most fascinating instrument that you touched and played?
Well, maybe I like romantic music more than Baroque, I guess. So I think it was in Kaunas, in Soboras, so-called Valker organ. I like it very much, and of course in Kaunas Cathedral. But this instrument is on reconstruction now.
Right, and to be more precise, Kaunas Garnison Church has this Valker organ with 3 manuals, right?
Yes.
3 manuals and a huge acoustics with maybe 7 seconds of reverberation. I haven't seen anything like that in Lithuania. You play something very loud and fast, and the echo reverberates in the room for 7 full seconds. Not at night, but during the day, normal day. So I could imagine at night it might be 8 or 9 seconds. It's very, very reverberant room, and you have to be very knowledgeable how to treat this instrument right, in the correct and efficient way, so that downstairs the listeners could understand what you're playing, right?
Yes.
Have you played this instrument yourself?
Yes. During our demonstration.
Exactly. We did one of our demonstrations together in Kaunas, in that Garnison church. What was your first impression about that organ?
it was quite easy to play because of its pneumatic action. And usually in Lithuania we have mechanical action organs. I liked the sound very much, and of course of the acoustics.
Right, and you could play lots and lots of symphonic repertoire, right? Like you could play Vierne very satisfactorily, and Vidas also, and to recreate those original French organ sounds that they have in Paris. So wonderful. And Ausra, do you remember the pieces that you played for that demonstration?
Demonstration? Yes, I remember some of them. Well, in Lithuania, for example, I think we both played the Klavierübung by Krebs. And it sounded good in that church.
Well, yes, because the organ was built in the second half of the 18th century, almost at the same time as Klavierübung by Krebs. And you have to remember that this Klavierübung collection doesn't also require any pedals. You could play with 10 fingers of your hands. So it works really splendidly.
And because it has quite a few stops, so you can register it in a nice manner.
Right. Wonderful. Let's go to our section of conversation about the demonstration, purpose of demonstration. Do you remember why did we started this demonstration? Why did we even bother to go to other significant or less significant places and play for kids, for older audiences? What inspired us to do that?
Well, we wanted to promote the pipe organ, actually, and to show that it's still playable. And after many demonstrations, people would just be amazed how the organ sound, because some of those sounds were never used and we have never heard them, especially reed stops. So we received quite a few comments from people about how could it be possible, to get sounds from the organ like this.
And Paulius, do you remember, traditional, normal, very typical Lithuanian church service, right? A typical, let's say, village organist would play. Would he or she use the full capacity of the instrument?
Of course no.
Of course not.
Of course no. Because usually organ is used as accompanying instrument. And I rarely heard the organ as solo instrument playing in the service. Usually it is used as an accompanying instrument.
I remember in some places we would find like organ pedal covered with a carpet, so you could just guess that local organist never uses them.
Oh yeah, now the story time. Do you remember one of the organs where the bench was too high, right? And you could not reach the pedal board with your heels.
Sure.
So what was done for that particular bench? Do you remember?
I remember there were some wooden plates just hammered, yes.
So that the bench was heightened artificially, and you couldn't really make it shorter, basically adjustable. So not everyone was really comfortable in playing trio sonatas by Bach. Right? I remember that time. Very strange. Great. So, what was people's reaction to your to our demonstrations? I remember one person came to us and literally cried and said that she never heard something like that in her entire life. As you mentioned before, the instrument sounded like a full orchestra, right? So, did you have those experiences, Paulius?
Yes, of course.
Was that because of the variety of music you presented, or was it because of the familiarity of the music? What inspired
I
people
think it was usual because people never heard organ as a solo instrument. It was for the first time, and usually organists in the small churches uses 1 or 2 registers, and usually they don't use another registers as mixtures, for example, because for accompanying a chant or a hymn, you don't use mixtures usually. So people for the first in their lives heard such sounds.
Right.
Plus, I think the repertoire that we played represented different group of stops, also like string stops,
Flutes, reeds.
Maybe it's a good place now to describe what we did in general with the demonstration, right? We usually started our demonstrations with sort of maybe historical background of how the organ came into being, right? In ancient Greece, how this man called Ctesibius, thanks Paulius, in the 3rd century BC, constructed the water organ, hydraulis, right? And we talked about that. I remember during the first demonstrations I didn't know the text very well, was not really fluent. So remember we had those prompts with little sheets of paper in front of us, and we literally read everything, and it wasn't very successful. But little by little, after 5 or 10 demonstrations, we started to improvise, basically, to say something we didn't rehearse, to say something that was fit for that particular occasion, right? Did that work?
Well, it was quite a challenge to speak and to play and to switch between us, and yes, it was quite a challenge. I think during our demonstration with Vidas, I did most of the playing part, and Vidas did most of the talking part.
The same with me.
Mm-hmm. And what was the most challenging part of your experiences with demonstrations? Do you remember?
Well, I think because usually we wouldn't have chance to rehearse before demonstrations, so we would just do it right away, and it's a challenge. It's a new instrument. You have to try things, to present things, represent, to talk, and it was really something.
Yes, you never know what you will find.
Yes, sometimes you pull out the stop and half of it didn't work.
Oh, you remember one church in Vidas, here near Vilnius, about 40 kilometers north of or west north of Vilnius, and one of our colleagues works there, and we successfully organized the organ demonstration there. But the organ itself was a real amateur instrument.
It was made from furniture.
For furniture, yeah.
Yes.
Like wardrobe.
Yeah. And what was the metal for pipes?
It's used. That metal is usually used for like roof.
Right, not typical lead and tin.
Or foreign pipes, I think, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the sound was quite scary, actually. But the most scariest part I remember was that the names of the stops were not real. And you push the principal button and it would sound maybe mixture sound. Or if you put on the flute sound, maybe the reed would come on. So luckily we had local organist. His name was Linas Paškevičius, exactly, our former colleague at Lithuanian Academy of Music, and he luckily basically helped us register some of the pieces, right? So that was fun. What else did we do?
I remember Bogoslaviškis. It's a very small country. And that time we had some time before the demonstration, and we tuned all the organ. I remember that, and music teacher who was playing in that church, she said she had never heard her organ sound like this.
Right, and since you mentioned Bogoslaviškis, this particular village church is especially very dear and near to me, because that's the place where I grew up. Basically, it's my parish, my mom's basically parish, and when we spent summers together at our grandparents' farm, basically many years ago, it was common for my mom and myself to travel on foot 5 kilometers to that church, and basically to ask the priest to let us play the organ. And I was about maybe in the 6th grade or so. I could play some piano music, some keyboard music, and that was the first instrument I actually encountered. Do you remember that smell, the wooden smell of that organ?
Yes.
The wooden, especially, I still remember to this day, and this is very transformative experience for me. It doesn't have any pedals, though. It only has one manual. 19th century, maybe 20th century first half instrument. Very few stops, but you could play. If you register wisely, you could play lots of solo organ repertoire as well.
Well, I think the funniest thing with Vidas and I experienced when we went to Daukšiai parish to play. It's in the southern part of Lithuania. Before that, Vidas had a conversation on the phone with priest and asked, "Do you have an organ?" And he said, "Oh yes, we do have organ." And when we asked the local organist already on the spot, where that organist, and apparently we didn't have one. And what did we have?
Synthesizer. No, harmonium.
Harmonium, yes.
Right.
But when that local organist, he brought synthesizer from home, and we played it on that thing.
Usually we would be very strict about pipe organs, right?
Yes.
While choosing the church, we would really inquire, is your organ playable? Does your organ have pipes? To be very specific, because you never know with those priests if their organ is playable. And we had to make sure that it could be playable. But in that particular situation, the priest literally didn't know that his organ had pipes or no. So lucky for us that local organist helped out and had the synthesizer in his trunk of the car.
I think I was so shocked and so embarrassed that I think I left all my music sheets in that church and never recovered them.
Right, we left all our demonstration collection for the local organist to enjoy. Hopefully they do organ demonstrations every Sunday since then. Maybe not. So Paulius, tell us a little bit, what is your regular Sunday look like?
My regular Sunday? I get up at 6. Have my coffee and I start my job in church at 8 o'clock usually.
What kind of a church is that? Could you give us a name?
This St. Joseph's Church in Vilnius, and I have 2 services, one in Lithuanian and another in a Polish language, and after that I'm free.
You mentioned Polish language. Why do they have Polish services in Lithuania?
It is not in Lithuania. It is actually in Vilnius district, because we have quite a lot of Polish people living in this district.
And do you lead the choir in this church? Are in church in choir?
Yes. One is in Lithuanian language and another is in Polish.
So basically you are leading two choirs,
Yes.
right? And do you have a pipe organ in
No.
that church? Not yet.
Because it's not a church, it is a chapel. It is quite new, only 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the reason that the new church is going to be built, that's why nobody actually built a real pipe organ there. And everybody's waiting for a new church and to have a real pipe organ in there.
Mm-hmm. So you have to be satisfied with the electronic organ, right? For the time being.
We are waiting.
Right. And of course we can testify with Ausra. We went a few times in Polish church that musical program in your place is quite on the high standard, I think. So it could be, I can tell Paulius a compliment that once I was visiting his church and I heard the organist play some hymns, and I literally suddenly realized it was not Paulius playing. So another organist was playing, and you could really hear the difference. So thank you, Paulius, for maintaining high standards of church music in your parish.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So do you have to sing in your church too?
Yes.
What do you sing?
If it is just a normal working day, so yes.
Mm-hmm. What do you sing?
What do I sing? Hymns usually.
Hymns, right?
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the organist situation in church music environment in Lithuania. Is that true that most of the time Lithuanian organists have not only to play the organ but also to be able to sing together while playing?
Yes, you usually in Lithuania and also actually in Poland,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same, I guess, that you have to lead a choir, play the organ, and sing as well.
Fantastic. Do you know why did such a tradition develop in Lithuania? What's your...
Well, I think it's also because we are Catholics. Most of us are Catholics, and the Catholic tradition requires that. For example, like in Lent period, you cannot play solo organ music. It must be accompanied by voice. So there is no possibility just to play organ. So you have to sing.
Mm-hmm. Let's speculate a little bit. Why most of the churches don't have choir directors and organist as a separate person, a separate team, two people, right, working together, and why one organist have to do the both jobs here in Lithuania most of the time?
Well,
of course.
I think it's it's such a complex problem that it's hard even to tell one reason.
Many reasons, right?
There
One
are
of
many
them
reasons.
is, of course, finances, right?
Finances,
It's cheaper
of course.
to hire one person to do two jobs than to hire two people to
But
do...
I don't think it's the main problem, finance.
I think there are so few people left, especially in like village places in Lithuania. Population is diminishing so fast. People emigrating, young people emigrating from Lithuania, and if new people come, we just stay in Vilnius, in capital city.
So in the capital of Lithuania, it's a little bit different situation, probably.
Yeah,
I think
churches.
so. Yes.
Higher standards of church music, right?
Yes.
In
Because just after graduating musical academy, usually those organists stay in Vilnius. So of course you have a higher level here.
And what happens out in the countryside, in those village churches? Can professional organists survive there, or do they have to find a few other types of positions in addition to that?
I think position of an organist is an addition to some other job. It's not that you are organist and you are looking for additional job. No, you have a job and your additional job is organist.
So what is usual occupation of the organist in countryside?
Usually like music teachers at the local school, or choir conductors also.
Musicians for weddings probably too.
Sure, yes. Yes.
Sometimes. So playing piano and leading the choir really helps, right? And teaching music at school to do some additional work as an organist in the country.
And I think it's a good time to mention that Paulius, actually, he is a professional lawyer. He's, his main job is...
It's kind of unusual here in Lithuania to have this kind of non-musical degree, but plus you have a passion for organ playing, and you followed through with your passion. Not only you listen to the organ music at home and you dream about becoming an organist. No, you took action and became an organist. That's kind of unusual. So we applaud you.
Sure, and it amazes me that Paulius has master's degree from the law school of Vilnius University, and actually he plays organ so well and works in church.
Fantastic. Let's see if we can describe a few of the challenges that church organist in Lithuania faces. What are the most common 3 challenges in Lithuania?
I think the biggest challenge is instrument. Even if you have pipe organ in your church, you usually you don't have money for maintaining them. They are untuned, or just you need a
restoration or repairing some parts of it.
Yes. The second problem in Lithuania, in Lithuanian language, even because of the Second Vatican Council, you can sing in a national language, not in Latin. So we have another problem of repertoire in Lithuanian.
Right.
I can compare very good because I am working with Lithuanians and Polish, so I don't have any problems with repertoire in Polish language, actually. Because, of course, it's a bigger country. Everything we get from Poland. But that in Lithuanian language, I think it is a problem. Because even composers who are composing music, they don't compose liturgical music. It's music for service. You can hear many sacred music, but it is not for liturgical purpose.
Sacred concert music, basically. Right?
Yes, it's usually used for the concerts, not for service.
Are the concerts tolerated in church very well?
In my church, yes, very much.
So you are kind of lucky to have this kind of situation where
everybody is invited, and you in my church you can even hear not sacred music sometimes.
Ausra, what is in other places? What is the situation in other?
I think it's not as good because in many places you have to give your concert repertoire to bishop to approve, and if he doesn't like names of your pieces, for example, remember once we had to problem with the Bach's Brandenburg Concerto, we could not call it Brandenburg Concerto, and we had just to add the tempos of movements like Allegro, Andante, and that's it.
Right, that was in Vilnius Cathedral. Yeah.
Yes, I heard the same about the pieces called Fantasy, for example.
Oh, fantasy is not religious, right?
So, even in Lithuania, as we played the Klavierübung, I remember we could not call it Klavierübung. We had to call it
Mass for the organ.
Mass for the organ, yes.
Maybe it rings a bell with Klavierübung Part 3 by Johann Sebastian Bach, and there is an opinion, right, that it might be conceived as a Lutheran mass, organ mass, right? One of the versions. So maybe organizers of this particular concert had an idea. Maybe these Krebs's chorales could also be thought of organ mass as well.
Now I remember a very good thought by Bernardas Vasiliauskas, the organist of Vilnius Cathedral. He said that all the music is sacred, actually, and there is no such music that you couldn't play in the church.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. It's just to know how to think about it.
Well, because music is something that we communicate when we cannot speak. It transcends language, transcends words. So it is sacred in some sense, right?
And I guess that we have here in this situation we have another problem. It's a problem of education, I guess, because people, right. if they say that such piece as fantasy can't be played in the church, so they are not familiar with the music at all, because it's just a title of a piece. You don't know what composer was thinking when he was composing. Maybe he had religious fantasies, actually.
Are you referring to the lack of education of the listeners or of the priests?
I think both.
Both. Right?
Both.
Do you know if the church music courses are taught in seminaries in Lithuania? Some sort of church music courses.
I guess a little bit.
Just a little, but not enough, right?
But when you listen to like singing mass, when you have like musical dialogue with the priest, he sings and you answer, and you can listen like in short phrase. He changes key like a few times, and you never know on which tune he will finish, on which note, and you don't know what to play for an answer.
Yeah, it happens that an organist...
Because he just modulates, a few times in one short phrase.
Would answer his phrase in one key, then the priest would modulate, right? And the organist would have to modulate one more time, right? And the same is for choir, it's kind of tricky. Paulius, does your priest have a good musical pitch?
Not very bad, actually, but I have a solution for that problem. Usually, I don't answer with the organ. If it is another priest who is changing pitch, usually I don't use organ. I just sing the answer. That's it.
That's a clever solution. Then you don't need to manually try to do some searching, right?
Yes.
Back and forth, semitones up and down.
Yes.
In organo pleno registration, that's sometimes embarrassing. Right. So lack of education, right? You say is one of the biggest problems. And that probably concerns us all, not only for people who are working in churches or not, but also for organists who play recitals also. Because music which is played in churches during recitals might not be understood by the general audience. Don't you think?
Sure.
What's the most common solution for that? Imagine we're not living in a perfect world, of course. We cannot suddenly educate everybody that we want to educate, right? What shortcuts or roundabouts we can go to find another way how to connect with the audience, whether in liturgical setting or extra liturgical activities like recitals?
Probably to strengthen music programs in the public schools at the beginning.
Yes, or if you have a recital, for example, music of Messiaen, so you always can speak about that music before playing it. I think the listener then listens in another way. I think it's a quite good solution. Or if you are playing a cycle, sometimes you can use biblical even citations from Bible just to illustrate the music.
To give something to think about for the people, right?
Yes, because it's quite hard music. Actually, it's not easy to listen sometimes. I don't think that it is a problem of the listener. I think it is the problem. It has an organist who is going to play that music, and he has to think how to introduce that music so that listeners would be that listeners would appreciate it.
Well, we touched upon a very sensitive subject here. Of course, everybody would love to be able to play for our audiences and to be understood and appreciated, right, for the hard work we do. But in reality, not too many people can understand the complexities that go into this work to prepare the pieces, right? And sometimes half-empty halls can be during recitals, right? Or people who will come will never show up again, for example. That's a problem too. So, but you say that talking during recital or event,
at least program notes.
Program notes, right?
Yes.
Program notes. What is more connecting, live word or the written word?
I think live word, but not everybody can do it. When we studied in USA, you remember we had to do like lecture recital, at least one, and we learned how to talk publicly, but not everybody can do it.
I think it's quite hard for an organist who is going to play. He has to concentrate himself and to talk before the playing. But of course, you always can ask your colleague to do it for you.
Exactly, two-person collaboration, right? Like narrator, you could think up the text, maybe, as you say, biblical citations, and that narrator, your priest even, you could be involved of reading, right?
Yes, we were making such concert of Pergolesi Stabat Mater. It is sung, actually, not played, but my priest was reading the text in Lithuanian, so everybody could understand, and even he made some thoughts about or meditations for each stanza.
And that is very, very successful, right?
Yes.
It helps to connect, right?
Sure.
And without connection, we cannot really hope to be appreciated and understood, right? And we need to be understood in order to be trusted and trustworthy, right? People like to go to events and concerts and cultural activities of people who they like, know, and trust. So this is one of the ways we can try to earn people's trust with communicating and connecting with them. So I hope our listeners can get a little bit of insight and inspiration for their own cultural activities in their own parishes, wherever they are, even in other parts of the world, whether in Western societies like America or Europe, Western Europe, for example, but it could be even in other countries like in Africa or South America, where organ art is in a completely different situation. I would be very curious to find out what's the state of organ playing in, for example, South America or Nigeria, for example. That would be very, very interesting. I bet they would share some common insights like we do, but I guess some of the local situations are much different from our perspective. So wonderful. Before we end, of course, let's ask you guys what's the best place to connect with you online? Could you give us a link where people can go and find out more about you and your work? Ausra.
Well, my email address is ausramotuzaite.pink@yahoo.com.
Fantastic. I will put this email into the description of this podcast. And of course, people can find Ausra daily in her harmony exercises that go into this blog of Secrets of Organ Playing. So go ahead and check it out on organduo.lt. And what about Paulius? What's the best way to find out more about your work?
I can see my emails. you won't find my work at the internet.
How about Facebook? Do you use Facebook?
Yes.
All right. So I'll make sure I'll include the link to this Facebook profile. And of course, your church has a website, right?
Yes.
Can you spell it out for us?
pilaitesparapija.lt.
Okay. I will include that into the description of this podcast as well. So if you need to find out more about what Paulius does and his cultural activities in the parish of St. Joseph in Vilnius, go ahead and visit his internet site for this church. Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for the work you do. I hope you will continue doing the work that matters for a lot of people around you. And before we end, let's talk just very briefly about one thing only. What is number one thing you wish you knew when you first started the organ, but you didn't, but you know now? Can you share that insight with us, which helps you today, but you didn't know about that many years ago? Ausra, let's start with you.
Well, that's a very hard question.
Good. Imagine you were a beginner, right? What was the most challenging thing for you to start?
Play pedal.
Right.
But now I think that it's one of the easiest thing in organ to play.
And what is your number one advice for people who are trying to play pedal successfully?
Don't be scared. Just do it. Just try it and you will succeed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You're very generous. And Paulius, what about you? What was the most challenging when you were just started? Of course, you're not a beginner anymore.
Yes, of course it was pedal. Because I was playing piano before the organ. So the pedal was the most challenging thing. What I know now and didn't know then.
What about some of the pedaling techniques? Was it very easy for you to pedal organ pieces to find out where the heel or toe goes? Was that challenging too?
It was, yes, but I had a very good book.
Right.
On organ technique. Actually, thank you, Vidas, for that book.
But I'm not the author of that book.
Yes, you are not the author of that book.
And who is the author of that book?
Ritchie.
Dr. George Ritchie, right?
George Ritchie,
and George Stauffer, right? George Ritchie and George Stauffer co-wrote the book Organ Technique,
Modern and Early. Yes,
you can check it out.
So it helped me a lot. Mm-hmm. It was like the first things I played from that book, exercises. So.
And actually, also what I found out while playing organ for many years now, that actually organ itself can teach you a lot. You just have to learn to listen to it, and it will tell you what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. What is inspiring to you now, as when you are just progressing into the next stage of your organ playing? What is the most inspiring? Why do you keep playing the organ now after decades of learning? Ausra, what is the most intriguing and curious fact about the organ that helps you to discover more and more horizons of organ playing?
Well, the thing for me is that I never treat organ as a musical instrument. For me, it's a real person. So when I'm playing organ, I'm actually having a conversation with a person, and it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It tells me many things.
Fantastic insight. I hope people around the world will start to think about the organ differently now. And what about you, Paulius? What's inspiring in the organ?
There's so many repertoire that I haven't played. So it's also I'm listening to organ music a lot on the internet, and that inspires me too. And of course, each instrument is different. That's what is inspiring. Actually, I'm not talking, of course, about my job, but when you travel, you usually don't know what you will find, what instrument, and it's also very inspiring.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys, for this conversation. It's so inspiring, and I hope we can do it again. It was very fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you liked this conversation, I encourage you to visit my blog Secrets of Organ Playing at organduo.lt, where you will find lots of insights, practical advice, and training for every area of organ playing. You can subscribe to this blog for free to get your daily dose of inspiration and to be the first to know when any of my future podcasts roll out. I hope to help you reach your dreams in organ playing. I'm Vidas PInkevicius. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you online really soon.